Today, I have some tips that will help you get the most out of Midjourney's new V7 model. In my last video, I went through my first impressions of V7, which is currently in an alpha state, meaning the model will continue to improve in the coming weeks. All of the tips that I'm about to share apply to V7, and many are also useful for the V6 models. Let's get started with some prompt structure, where my first tip is to place key subjects toward the beginning of your prompt. Word order matters. While the V7 model can handle longer and more complex prompts, the order of your words will influence the final results. Putting your main subject at the beginning helps establish it as the main focus. In this example, when the knight is at the front of the prompt, he's more prominent in the results, compared to if I place him towards the end of the prompt. Next, use clear and complete sentences. Midjourney V6 and V7 prefer natural language, and that means good grammar, spelling, and punctuation will help Midjourney interpret your prompt correctly. Here's a basic prompt formula that you can use to help get you started. I used this format to guide this prompt of an anthropomorphic cat wearing a tuxedo in a grand ballroom. Look closely at that middle sentence for the chandelier. I don't just say that I want a chandelier. I am specific about where it is, in the background and hanging from the ceiling. Then at the end, I include details about the style that I want for the image. Structuring the prompt like this helps Midjourney process each sentence as a more distinct unit of information, creates clearer boundaries between concepts, and can help when you need precise control over how elements interact in your image. Now, that's not to say that you can't use comma-separated prompts or prompt a random list of words. I love more exploratory prompting approaches. In fact, most of the prompting that I do is more exploratory. There's not really one right way to prompt, but if you want something specific, you need to be clear and specific with your prompt. Which takes me to my next tip: be specific. In this example, I asked for a 1970s animated cartoon style. I didn't just say in the style of a cartoon. There are a lot of different cartoon styles. Here are some examples of how specifying different cartoon styles dramatically changes the results. Think about the type of cartoon that you want. This goes for any style that you're considering. You can refer to a style based on a show or artist, but also think more about the specific characteristics for the style. Is it minimal? Does it have bold outlines, cell shading, simple shapes, flat colors, exaggerated expressions, etc.? If Midjourney seems to be ignoring a detail in your prompt, describe it in multiple ways using different wording so that you help Midjourney focus on it more. This is a long prompt example that I shared in my previous video, where I described the parrot as being mechanical and having mechanical parts, to get Midjourney to focus on not just making a parrot, but making a mechanical one. Use redundancy like this to emphasize those important details. And if that fails, try placing crucial details earlier in your prompt. Next, take advantage of V7's improved prompt understanding and adherence. V7 has a better understanding of many different styles, specific artists, facial expressions, some composition terminology, and more. Here are a few examples. When I prompt for CCTV footage in V6, I mostly get images of the cameras themselves. But V7 understands that I want to see the footage and not the camera. Diesel punk is an illustration style that is much more accurate and true to that aesthetic in V7. This one was pointed out to me by one of my Patreon members, so thanks for that. Henry Russo is a famous naive artist who I shared back in my November prompt collection. These V7 images are more true to his naive art style, especially with the colors compared to V6. Getting a full body image is easier in V7 just by including full body in your prompt, even at wide aspect ratios. And when that doesn't work, try including clothing descriptions, facial expressions, their shoes, or standing on the ground. For portraits from the hips up, I find that including 2/3 body, along with specific details like hair color, wearing a button-down shirt, or saying that their hands are on their hips, can be helpful. I'm also finding that V7 is better with facial expressions. Getting images of a character winking or an image of a person with furrowed brows that isn't completely zoomed in on the brows themselves is also much easier. If there's a style or a subject that you've noticed is better or worse in V7, please comment down below. I'm really enjoying exploring some of the differences between V6 and V7. Another tip is to break the composition into sections or layers. Let's take a look at the over-the-shoulder shot where the camera or POV is from behind one character and viewing towards a second character. Midjourney can have multiple interpretations for over-the-shoulder, so just including over-the-shoulder is often not sufficient enough to get that classic view. So forget about over-the-shoulder for a minute and let's break down the composition. How can you describe the scene differently in a way that is more clear to Midjourney? In this prompt, I start with the person whose face I want to see and say that she is on the right, has brown hair, and that she has a serious expression on her face because I want to see her face. Then I set up the second character who is on the left and in the foreground, and I describe the back of that person to reiterate that we don't want to see their face. And the results aren't too bad. And this prompt setup works pretty well for both wide and tall aspect ratios. You can also create some cool double exposure or photo montage style images with a layered approach, simply by describing what is on the bottom layer of the image and what is on the top layer. Use Style Raw when you need maximum prompt adherence. Midjourney is always balancing creating visually pleasing images and accurately following your prompt. Sometimes the default Midjourney aesthetics can interfere with what you're specifically asking for. Adding Style Raw tells Midjourney to reduce its default artistic styling and focus more directly on your prompt instructions. So if you ever have a prompt that just isn't working, try it out with Style Raw and see if that helps. But also be aware that high stylized values, personalization, and things like style references can also get in the way of prompt adherence, so you may need to adjust those as well. The V7 model is much better at understanding multiple languages and can be used to achieve more culturally authentic images. For example, I started with this prompt, a photo of a smiling woman wearing a red shirt, in English, and got these results. Then I went to Google Translate to translate that same prompt into several different languages and ran those. I used the same seed number, so Midjourney started with the same visual noise pattern for all of these image grids, but because I submitted the prompts in different languages, Midjourney tailored the results to better represent someone from a cultural background where that specific language might be commonly spoken. So if you're trying to create images representing different cultural backgrounds, try running the prompt in a representative language. Next, get to know how your personalization affects your results by running a permutation prompt. Permutation prompts use curly brackets and comma-separated text to tell Midjourney to run multiple prompts at once. So I can run this single prompt and 6 jobs will be submitted. Let me explain that. Here I have 3 comma-separated items within the curly brackets, and over here I have another set of curly brackets that tells Midjourney that I want to run a set of jobs without personalization and a set of jobs with personalization. Every job will be run with V7 and with seed number 1111. You can pick any number here for this exercise. I'll leave some seed parameter resources down below. And before you run your permutation prompt, you must have either fast or turbo mode enabled. So that one permutation prompt tells Midjourney to run these 6 jobs. And now as we look at some of these results side by side, you can see how my global personalization tends to bring in more teal colors. And if you prompt for more subjects and scenes, you'll start to see how your personalization code affects other elements in your results. Permutation prompts are a lot of fun for testing things like this out. Just be aware of your fast hours because they can disappear quickly. Okay, let's go through some tips for using your V6 SREF codes in V7. The style reference feature in V7 Alpha is currently producing some mixed results. Midjourney knows this and the team is actively working on it, so it should improve soon. In the meantime, I've been testing some of my favorite V6 SREF codes in V7, and I have a few tips for getting better results. The first is to increase the Stylize value. This comes at a potential cost to prompt adherence because it's going to lay on Midjourney's default aesthetics more heavily, but it often results in more pleasing images. Next, including my V7 global personalization code has also helped. Remember that if you include your personalization, the Stylize parameter will control the strength of that instead of controlling the strength of the default Midjourney aesthetic. The third thing that I found helpful is blending multiple SREF codes. I try to pick SREF codes that are similar or complementary to each other. It's been really fun to go through my SREF guide and pick out different SREF codes to blend together. Sometimes I add weights to each SREF code if I want certain styles to have more influence. Blending SREF codes has actually been my favorite way so far to get the most out of style reference in V7. Remix mode is now available in V7. Remix mode allows you to create variations on an image while also changing the prompt text and parameters. You can use this feature to iterate on your favorite V6 images within the V7 space. Here I have a V6 image, and instead of clicking Very Subtle, which would give me subtle variations of this image using the V6 model, I'll click Remix Subtle, and now I can change the prompt. Here I changed the model to V7, and I'm going to use my V7 global personalization instead of my V6 personalization. And now I have new variations on my V6 image, but created with the V7 model. Okay, next I have a few draft mode tips for you. Draft mode is a lower quality mode that is useful for quickly iterating on ideas. To activate it, just click the lightning bolt. You can type a prompt here and it will run it in draft mode as is, or you can activate conversational mode. Once you're in conversational mode, you're giving Midjourney commands, not prompts. Midjourney will choose a prompt for you based on your instructions, so we'll be using conversational mode for these tips. So my first tip here is to set a verbal command trigger. What this does is tells Midjourney to only create images when you say a specific word or phrase. Let me show you how it works. So I'll click here to activate my microphone, and now as I'm talking, you can see that it's listening. So Midjourney, I only want you to submit prompts when I say the phrase, run that prompt. Okay, I want to see a black and white illustration of a rabbit in a meadow. No, I take that back. Let's do a whimsical illustration of a rabbit in a meadow. Run that prompt. And now we have some whimsical rabbits. We can also command it to run multiple prompts at once. I've turned my microphone off, but I'm still in conversational mode, so I'll type my command up in the prompt bar. So I want to see a bear greeting a fox in 5 different cartoon styles, and I want Midjourney to choose the styles for me. So I run that, and now I have 5 pretty diverse cartoon-like illustrations. There are still some things being worked out with draft mode. For example, this style 1, 2, 3, etc. does not need to be in the prompt and is not useful, but it's kind of a fun use case. Another fun thing to do in draft mode is to create named characters and then give Midjourney a scene to place those characters into. Conversational mode has memory, so it can look at your previous jobs that have been run within that session. Create the first character by giving it a name and whatever other details that you want. Here I'm asking for a female warrior named Sai with brown hair, blue goggles, and a black outfit. And because I'm in conversational mode, Midjourney is deciding what prompt to use. Then I'll create a second character, this time a white-haired magician named Robert. So we have images of Sai and Robert, and next I want Midjourney to put these characters together in a scene. To do this, I include Sai and Robert's names in the command, and because we are in conversational mode, Midjourney will grab their character descriptions from the previous jobs. Sometimes it forgets, but most of the time it does a pretty good job. Now, obviously we're not using character references here, but this is a quick and easy way to iterate through storytelling ideas. Once you get an image that you like, clicking Enhance will give you a new set of higher quality images with minimal variation. This behavior was recently updated, so it differs a little from what I shared in my last video. Each image now has its own Enhance button, and the variation in the results that you get from clicking Enhance is even more subtle than if you were to click Very Subtle. That wraps up today's video. If you have a prompt that is proving difficult in V7, please share it below and we can all try to help troubleshoot. Oftentimes it just takes a little bit of rewording or parameter adjustment to get things moving in the right direction. And if you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and maybe even joining my Patreon community where I share monthly prompt collections and Midjourney guides. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.